All right, so let's set the scene right. Imagine, like, you're in this totally peaceful meadow as the sun comes up, everything's still. And suddenly, who walks out of the morning mist but Buddha and Jesus?
Wow.
Talk about a serious meeting of the minds. And that's kind of the wild premise that the Buddha met Jesus starts with. And that's what we're diving into today, this imagined conversation. But man, it brings up some really big stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a really powerful way to think about these huge questions, life's big challenges. And because it's these two like icons, we get to compare how they approach things without getting bogged down in all the, the doctrinal stuff.
Totally. It's like we're getting to eavesdrop on a conversation that could seriously change how you see the world. And the way the story's set up is really cool too. It unfolds in 3 parts. And that very first meeting, total silence. Just these 2 figures looking at each other. It's like they get something really profound about one another before a single word is even spoken.
It's true. It's such a neat little technique, right? By focusing on what's not being said, it kind of sucks you in. You find yourself wondering, okay, what are they thinking? What are they seeing in each other?
Right. Like it's the calm before the storm of ideas, and then the dialogue starts. And you've got Buddha really zeroing in on desire. Like that's the root of suffering for him. Got to let go, find that inner peace.
Which makes total sense given like his whole backstory. The text really emphasizes how he walked away from a crazy privileged life to go after enlightenment. And it wasn't like some mystical gift that just fell into his lap. It was a realization he earned through like intense introspection.
Yeah, that part always gets me, that image of Buddha ditching comfort and everything to search for something more. It makes you think, right? Like what would it take for us to question our own routines? The comfortable stuff we take for granted, to pursue something deeper.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the contrast with how Jesus is portrayed is so interesting. This text, it really zeroes in on love and sacrifice, not as some like easy fix, but as a path through the tough stuff, a way to find meaning even when things are painful.
And what I find really powerful is that it doesn't sugarcoat the struggle.
Yeah.
Like that scene in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is facing his own death and he's scared. I mean, it makes him relatable,
Totally. He's not just this distant divine figure. He's human, dealing with real, raw emotions.
And that honestly makes his whole message about love even more powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from someone who understands, he's walked through the fire himself. So, okay, we've got Buddha with his focus on finding peace by letting go, and then Jesus advocating for love as the way to transcend the tough stuff. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The text doesn't say one of them is right.
And that's what makes it so cool. It's big enough to acknowledge that both paths are valid. It's like they're both holding pieces of a larger truth. And when you can understand both perspectives, it gives you this like richer view of what it means to be human.
It's like they're both saying, hey, guess what? There are a lot of ways to face life's challenges. And that's like incredibly freeing.
Absolutely. It's a message I think we all need to hear more of, especially these days. Instead of obsessing over our differences, what if we look for that common ground? The things that connect us.
Okay, so we've talked about the setting, that initial meeting, and these contrasting yet equally valid viewpoints of like Buddha and Jesus. But hold on, because the text takes this really bold turn. It starts imagining what Buddha and Jesus might have regretted.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild thought experiment, right? I mean, we usually put these figures up on a pedestal like they had it all figured out. But what if they had doubts, like second thoughts even?
Right, nobody's perfect, even when you're talking enlightenment. Makes you wonder, what did they struggle with on the way to, becoming these iconic figures?
Totally. And with Buddha, the text kind of suggests that maybe, just maybe, he might have questioned the cost of getting to that enlightened state. Imagine like dedicating your whole life to understanding suffering, finding peace, but having to leave your family behind to do it.
Man, that makes you think about the trade-offs we all make,
Yeah.
Maybe not on that scale, but still balancing our own big goals of taking care of the people we love. It's a constant thing.
It really is. Attention as old as time, right?
Yeah.
And this text, it reminds us that even Buddha, the ultimate picture of Zen, might have dealt with those same very human dilemmas.
And honestly, there's something kind of comforting about that. Like even someone who achieved that level of spiritual insight still had doubts, those what-if moments, just like us.
Absolutely. It makes his teachings feel less, untouchable and more relevant to the struggles we all face.
Okay, so we've got Buddha maybe wondering about the road not taken. What about Jesus? The text goes in a really interesting direction with his potential regret.
It suggests that what might have caused him the most sorrow wasn't the physical pain, like the crucifixion itself, but the idea that his message, this beautiful message of love, could be twisted, used to justify, division and conflict.
Which is, well, kind of what we've seen happen throughout history, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's this awful irony, right? Preaching love, but knowing it could be used to fuel hate.
It's a lot to sit with. A reminder that even the purest intentions can get misinterpreted. Like, that potential for good can always have the risk of being misused.
Heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Makes you consider the weight of responsibility.
Yeah.
Not just for big historical figures, but for all of us. Our words, our actions, they have ripple effects. We may not see them, but they're there.
It's a call for mindfulness, for sure, to really think about the impact of our choices, even when we're coming from a good place.
All right, so we've got Buddha potentially questioning those personal sacrifices he made, and then Jesus grappling with the bigger consequences of his message. It's heavy, yeah, but also it makes them feel more real, more human.
And that leads to a really important question, right? What do we do with these mixed emotions, these glimpses into the complexities of even the most, enlightened minds?
It's like this text is saying, hey, let's ditch the simple either-or thinking. We do that so often.
Totally, like Buddha or Jesus.
Sure.
Inner peace or outward love. Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe there's a way to find wisdom in both.
It's like the text is suddenly making you as the director,
Yeah.
right? We got to imagine these figures from history plopped down right here, right now, 2024. Social media is everywhere. Climate change, AI. What would they make of it all?
Oh man, gets the imagination going for sure. You've got these figures who are all about inner peace and radical love, and you're dropping them into a world that feels kind of defined by, noise and division, right?
Exactly. Like picture showing them Times Square or trying to explain what a 24-hour news cycle, even IS. Would they freak out? Or would they see through the craziness and connect with something deeper, you think?
I actually think they'd be really into how we try to find connection and meaning in this whole digital age. Think about it. Social movements glowing up online. Communities offering support to people across the world. It's kind of like a whole new frontier for compassion, even if it comes with its own baggage.
That's such a great point. So it's like their core message is that inner peace, that radical love, that compassion.
Right.
It's timeless, right?
Yeah.
But how we actually live that out in the 21st century, that's the real head scratcher.
Totally. It's like the text is saying, all right, we gave you these tools, these big important ideas. Now you go figure out what they look like in this messy, ever-changing world.
So it's not about trying to copy Buddha or Jesus exactly. It's more about taking their wisdom and remixing it for our own lives, right?
Yeah.
How do we stay mindful when we're getting hit with notifications 24/7? How do we show real compassion when everything feels kind of surface level?
It's about adapting, not ditching those teachings altogether. Maybe instead of needing that silent monastery, it's about finding moments of peace in a busy city. Or maybe instead of that face-to-face meal, it's about showing up online for someone who's struggling.
Like finding new ways to express those old, powerful ideas. And that's what makes this thought experiment so cool, right? It's not just about them, it's about us. It's about each of us taking charge of our own spiritual journeys, figuring out how to live a life that feels meaningful when the world's not making it easy.
And man, that's a challenge worth taking on, don't you think? To take that ancient wisdom and actually use it to build a better future. For all of us, not just ourselves.
So well said. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into the day Buddha met Jesus, we're not walking away with all the answers, right? But what we do have is this renewed sense of possibility, this challenge to keep asking questions, keep searching and keep trying to find that balance, that inner peace, Andy, that love for the world around us, even in the middle of, all this.
It's a lifelong thing and definitely something worth sharing.
Absolutely. So until next time, everyone, keep those conversations going, keep wrestling with the big stuff, and as always, keep diving deep.